Welcome back to Andy Audio Vault. Today I'll be doing a review on an IEM from TANGZU, their flagship IEM, which is Zetian Heyday. Let's check it out. TANGZU Zetian Heyday. It comes in a rather large box here, as you can see, and I have here. These are the things which are included inside the box. So we get this one very nice looking carrying case, the IEM itself here, the cable, the modular plugs, and selection of tips. Okay, let's just talk about the IEM itself first. You see here, having had the original Zetian a few months back, I am actually really happy to see that this Heyday has been revised in a more appealing color scheme, because obviously I am not a purple kind of guy. I just love this gunmetal look. It is aluminium, and what's inside? It is an upgraded 14.5 mm magnetic planar driver with the sensitivity of 100 dB, fair enough, and somewhat rather low impedance rating at just 16 ohm. Okay, just like the original Zetian ergonomically it is very easy to wear. Doesn't have any pronounced edgy section at the back here where it is facing the ear. All right, and as for the rest of the accessories included, we also have here very nice, very thick and rather bold cable, silver plated copper with 2-pin termination. And I think most importantly is that one of the biggest appeal for this Heyday is that it also comes in modular plugs like this, with all three major sizes included. So that's the 4.4 mm balance, 2.5 mm balance, and the normal 3.5 mm single-ended. All right, connecting them is very easy. Just align it and there you go. One thing that I like about this plug is that it looks very solid as well, but also because of the humongous size. Okay, perhaps on certain dongle or equipment it may look a bit bigger than any other plugs, but that's not an issue for me. Okay, and now talking about the tips here, the good thing is that Heyday also comes with all three major sizes and two different types. And the funny thing here, perhaps TANGZU would pay some attention. It's supposed to be foams, but what's shipped is that just another set of silicone tips. Okay, for your information, I have spent like 200 hours now with this Heyday, and the entirety of my impression for the first 150 hours, I have been using these tips actually, the stock tips. This essentially the balance ear tips, the wider bore. Okay, I find it to be quite well suited to Heyday in terms of sound reproduction, sound effects, right? And also the comfort of it. I was able to wear it. That's the most important thing, because normally I always prefer foam tips, but then again I will touch on that again also later. All right, so that's pretty much the build, the content, and the configuration for Heyday. Okay, let's talk about the sound aspect of this Heyday. Let's just first look at the graph as provided by TANGZU here. As can be seen here, right, It is a HBB collaboration with TANGZU, and in fact here, TANGZU have included also the graph for the original Zetian Wu, the purple color. And if you have read my review on Zetian Wu on Head 5, I was already impressed with it. But the only thing that bothers me was that I find it a bit too bassy for my taste. Somebody who prefer a more neutral sound, I think it was in fact a bit too heavy on the lower frequency. In fact, I declare it openly as a bass head IEM. Okay. Now, when I look at this graph, okay, even before I receive it, I was really happy to see it because first and foremost, it is apparent to my eyes right now what I'm seeing that TANGZU have decided to tone down the lower frequency to a point that it is now edging closer to neutral territory. Okay, so what it means is that the boosting of the lower frequency is not as crazy as the original Zetian Wu. It is, in fact, like I say, edging closer to neutral, but not exactly neutral because neutral bass is a lot flatter than this. Okay, and of course, I can also see here there's a bit of smoothing on the upper frequency, where else the mid range relatively remain the same. Okay, that's the graph part of it. How does Heyday sounds on real life, right, as compared to the graph? I can confirm that what my ears telling me, right, the tuning on the graph itself is pretty much accurate. Okay, let's just talk about the lower frequency itself. Heyday is something that I would consider as a mid-bass focus IEM. Okay, what it means is that the sub-bass is not as pronounced. It is still there, but the presence of mid-bass is a bit stronger as compared to the sub-bass. So it also translates into something which is, let's say, for example, if you like Harman type of tuning, which focus a lot on sub bass and not so much on mid bass, so this would be probably something that not as appealing to you. But for people who love strong mid bass, Zetian Wu Heyday is something which is one of the best performer with that aspect. And it is even more surprising because this is a magnetic planar. In fact, I am hearing something which is more closer to the sort of dynamic driver sort of presentation with the mid bass. So what I'm trying to say is that it has good authority to it, rumble and punch, but not too much, just nice, okay? And the way it transition into sub bass, the decay stage, it has ample amount of seismic sensation. So that is something which is very positive because a matter of saying that despite not being sub-bass focused, it does not sacrifice the sub-bass performance. The micro details, the decay of sub-bass is still very clear. And most importantly to me is that the bass density itself, the way it's being presented is very smooth, fast and tidy. So that's definitely a win-win thing in my book. Now, switching to mid-range. Perhaps I can safely say that this Heyday, one of the strength for it is that it offers rich sounding mid-range, which is almost transparent. And I say almost transparent because I can sense that despite being relatively uncolored, the mid-range itself, especially when I listen to vocal side of it, I can sense that there's a hint of warming, okay, which in turns, right, give it a good sense of richness to the overall presentation of mid-range. So it is frontal, it is bold, but not to a point that it is being overly warm. Okay, there's enough or ample amount of transparency to enjoy the mid-range as how it was intended by the recording. And then of course, going into the instrument side of it, I just love how fast and how tidy the attack are. The attack is very crisp. The imaging is strong. The texture and definition is great. And this is the sort of quality you can expect from flagship type of IEM. And this is indeed flagship for TANGZU. Okay, so that's the mid-range part of it. And switching to the upper frequency now. So let's just put it this way. This Heyday is definitely even smoother than the original Zetian Wu. But in the process of tuning it to become smoother, the good thing is that TANGZU did not sacrifice the smaller details. And I can say that the strength of Heyday is that it retains the amount of macro details, and also micro details of it, but not as forward sounding as how you can expect from a lot more energetic IEM, like even let's say Timeless, okay, or even the original Zetian Wu. It's a bit more polished. In a way, a manner of saying is that it does not exhibit any kind of unrealistic sparkle or energy to it. Okay, let's just put it this way. The macro detail of the treble, anything from upper mid-range to the main body of the treble and all the way to the extension side of it, all right, I'm hearing very good presentation, very good quality. It does not sound metallic or plasticky. It actually sounds organic to my ear. So that's a huge plus. Okay, so that's on the aspect of the three dynamics extension range. Okay, let's talk about the technical aspect of it. First and foremost, I would just simply say that I am very impressed with the technicalities of this Heyday. Soundstage is big, yes, no doubt about it. I have been trying it and compare it against a few other IEM that I have. I can safely say that Heyday offer some of the most spacious soundstage that I have ever heard so far, especially coming from Magnetic Planar. It feels open, it feels spacious, and it is also holographic. Holographic enough that I was able to use this Heyday for gaming as well, because the positioning, the spatial spread of it, the imaging, the strength of, let's say, placement is accurate to a point that even with FPS gaming, I was able to track sound properly in, three-dimensional aspect. It is definitely not 2D. And of course, talking about the resolution, and the layering, the separation itself, this is definitely one of the best that I've heard so far within this price range. It is in fact edging towards the higher end kind of a TOTL performance, sort of performance that you can expect. It is very clean, definitely. Okay. I would just like to clarify first that Heyday already sound great even when plugged in directly to my Sony Xperia phone, which is under 1 VRMS, indicating that it is efficient enough, right? Even though the source is not that too powerful. But however, for the majority of the sound impression that I have done for this review, I have actually used it mostly here, as you can see with my stack of Megatron, doing line out to my i5 Class A amp tube amp, which offers 1003 milliwatt of power. Okay, and also of course it sounds the best as well with Centron's Deckport HD, Cayenne Iru 6, and also Ovidius P1. I must say that I am super impressed with how it scales with power. Just like a good magnetic planar, it definitely sounds even better, even more spacious with richer density in the sound when proper power are given to it. All right, let's now talk about the comparison of this Heyday against the rest of the competition. Okay, before I do that, perhaps I'll just kind of help you to understand my perspective, what I have heard so far. And I would draw comparison against the likes of, let's say this, I have basically tested 13 IEM, magnetic planar, all of them, which is starting with Tin Hi-Fi P1, P1 Plus, 7 Hz Timeless, Let's Sure Z12, TANGZU Zetian Wu itself, the purple one, and of course KZPR1, Moondrop Stellaris, Dunu Talos, Celeste Gumiho, Celeste Pandemon, Muse Hi-Fi Power, Let's Sure S12, and of course Heyday itself now being the latest one. Yep, I know there's a lot of IEM to compare with, so I'll just make it simple. I'll just pick three of the best among the best of all that, and those are Heyday itself, obviously, Dunu Talos, and S12. Okay, so let's now dig into the details of that comparison. First with Dunu Talos. If you read my review on Headfi, okay, I am super impressed with this Dunu Talos to a point that I would declare that Dunu Talos is definitely the best implementation of magnetic planar to exist at that point of time. especially if running in pure planar mode, not the hybrid mode. Okay. What I am hearing from this Talos is that something which is highly technical, very resolving, and very well executed dynamic presentation. It is very well balanced. It does not show any kind of overly colored presentation of the dynamics, even on the lower frequency. Now that I have this Heyday, right, as compared to Talos, I'll be very frank with you, it's kind of a bit difficult for me to actually separate them side by side because they are both very excellent with the sound presentation. Okay. And perhaps after extensive listening, I was able to kind of like identify which are the key things that separate them. Okay. First and foremost, I would say that Talos is a bit more energetic. Okay. And it's a bit more pronounced with the imaging, which means that as compared to Heyday, Talos is a bit sharper sounding still. Okay. Does not mean that it is sibilant or piercing or anything, is that it's just that, right, the focus on Heyday is a bit more on being a bit smoother if compared to Dunu Talos. And also referring to the, let's say, the lower frequency between Talos and Heyday, I would say that Heyday offer a bit more of authority with mid-bass presentation, whereas Talos edge closer to being a bit more, let's say, less pronounced mid-bass presentation. But otherwise, everything else, they are pretty much on equal ground. So a matter of saying is that if anybody would ask me right now, what is the best magnetic planar in the market available right now, it would be very difficult for me to say it can be either this Heyday or it can be either this Talos, right? Because both are superb in their own way. The one that separate them is that what kind of small detail that you prefer. If you prefer a bit more, let's say, strong, crisper presentation, it is Talos. If you prefer a bit more of smoothness and a bit more of, mid-bass kind of performance, then it will be Heyday. But otherwise, they are practically on the same level. Then where does xDuoo fall into the picture? I know this is very popular. I would say that after doing extensive tests, okay, this is my notes here. You see, one of the things that I noticed is that xDuoo has slightly lacking a bit of authority and presence with mid-range. Yes, compared to both Talos and Heyday, I would say that xDuoo does not present mid-range as rich as the other two. Okay, and the other thing is that the imaging itself. Okay, both Heyday and Talos offer stronger imaging. The crispness, the resolution of the imaging is slightly more. And then when looking at the coherence of the dynamic transient itself, okay, I would say that Talos and Heyday is slightly better as well in that aspect. But does it mean that this S12 is lacking? But no, this is already among my top 3, among the 13 that I have actually used. It is still definitely an amazing IEM on its own, if you are not comparing it with either Talos or Heyday. Okay, so that's pretty much how I would say it. In general, the sound aspect of all 3 are pretty much similar, so they can safely compete with each other because the sound presentation itself is very similar. But otherwise, the thing that separate them are the finer details, the technical aspect of it, the small thing that matters. Sometimes, when you become an audiophile, right, these small details makes a lot of difference. Okay. All right, let's just conclude on this TANGZU Zetian Heyday. I would just simply say that, this flagship offering from TANGZU is definitely something that I would consider as the best right now when it comes to magnetic planar. Perhaps the only competition that it will have is just from this Dunu Talos, which I explained earlier, the differences between both of them. Okay, going back to Zetian Heyday, I am very impressed with the sound aspect of it. The tuning, it is very well balanced. Okay, it is close to being neutral, but perhaps most important to me is that how smooth and how polished the sound is. The amount of brightness that it has, and the sort of lower frequency performance with the rich mid range. I'm just enjoying it. Let's just put it this way. I can see myself really using it on regular basis. So that is something which is meaningful to me at the very least. Okay. And not forgetting also, with the accessories being provided, the wear factor of it, all right. I was able to use it for both music, gaming, and everything. I can wear it for up to 6, 7 hours, no issue at all. So it is very difficult for me to actually nitpick on any particular cons on this Heyday. So a manner of saying is that it is definitely something that I would highly recommend if anybody were to ask me what's the best magnetic planar IEM available right now in the market. Okay, so thank you for watching, and then please subscribe and stay tuned to Andy Order Walk for more content like this. Bye.